I grew up in a house with my grandmother, my grandfather, and my mom. My father was not there. My grandmother, who I called Big Mama, told me one day when I was 5. She said, "Boy, you are somebody." And I grew up believing that I was somebody. I had a teacher who said one day, "If not you, then who? If not now, then when?" And that kind of stuck with me. In church, I kept hearing the preacher say, "God is going to send the leader." And so I was motivated to be involved, got involved in the sit-ins as a senior in high school, and then went on to Morehouse and was impressed with Martin Luther King Sr., his son A.D., and his son Martin. To be exposed to Martin King was, I think now in my life, not an accident, but it was divinely purposed. In 1960, that he had just moved to Atlanta from Montgomery, and he came over to the school to speak to us about nonviolence and love. And somebody in the crowd said, "Dr. King, it's all right to talk to us about it. Show us how it's done." And so Dr. King made a phone call home and then told them that I guess he was going to sit in with us. And we were at Richards and Davidson's department stores teaming up, but we all ended up in the same cell block. And, you had to sit during the day out in the open space in the jail. And Dr. King taught and preached and taught us about love and nonviolence. And I guess it would have just passed on, except divine providence had it, that I developed pneumonia in jail. And Dr. King Sr. bailed me out. I couldn't go back to the school sick. So Dr. King Sr. took me to his son, A.D., and Naomi's house. And they nurtured me back to health. Being exposed to the Kings, I learned a kind of lesson and a kind of admiration that I had not had before, not having had a father in the home. Dr. King was going to Albany, Georgia, 1962, to participate in groundbreaking for 3 churches that had been bombed. And he was going to have to be back for communion, so I helped to drive him to the airport. I was not scheduled to go. It was a 4-seater, the pilot, and 3 seats. It was supposed to have been Dr. King, Ralph Abernathy, and Bernard Lee. But Bernard Lee didn't show on time. And Dr. King told me to come on and go. And in the first time I'd ever been on a small plane, second time I'd been on a plane, period. And a little storm was going on up in there. And we were talking, and I asked Dr. King why he didn't have an SCLC chapter in Memphis. And he said, "You've got a strong NAACP chapter." And I said, "But there are other cities where we have strong NAACP chapters, but we still have an SCLC chapter." And he said, "There's something about Memphis that does not sit well with me. That whenever I come into Memphis to preach, I try to get out the same night, or at least early the next morning, because Memphis just doesn't feel right to me." That's 1962. Fast forward to 1968, and he loses his life in Memphis. To be standing on the parking lot and to hear Dr. King talking to us on the ground, and for Ben Branch to show up, the director of the Breadbasket Band, who was originally from Memphis but living in Chicago. And Jesse Jackson says, "Look, Dr. King, who's here?" Ben Branch. And Dr. King says, "Brother Ben, How you doing? Glad to see what you doing. And Ben Bryant says the whole band is here. And we're going to play for the mass meeting tomorrow night. And Dr. King says, I want you to play Precious Lord. And I want you to play it real pretty. And he stood up. And he was no more. Just as Jesus had an impact upon the disciples who followed him, Martin King had an impact on so many of us. And so the dreamer dies, but the dream lives on. My God, my family, and my community, in that order, are the three things that are most important in my life. Our oldest daughter was born in Tuscaloosa, but I was in the Selma movement when she was born. I came back to Memphis, pastored in a little town outside of Memphis called Bolivar, Tennessee, where I learned to love the people. They learned to love me. We shared together in the movement and bridging gaps there. And our son was born while I was in Bolivar. And then in 1977, I got the call to come pastor the Mount Calvary Baptist Church here in Knoxville. And our youngest daughter, LaKenya, was born while we were here. Our oldest daughter is the quiet, steady force. Our youngest daughter is more like her dad, I think. Our son is a place in between, but he shares. Each of our children in their own way make a contribution to make life better for others, to give of themselves, and to express and show their Christianity, their spirituality, in a way of giving, in a way of service. And that's what life is all about. And whatever God has given to us, it's our duty to share it. And where much is given, much is required.
I hope everybody's home was like our home, where we were able to be whoever we were, to have, I think, really normal conversations about everything from, what was going on in everybody's day to where most of us are I think all of us, I guess, probably are sports fans. And so, the games and all of that, but then to also have really meaningful conversations about what was going on in the world around us and be able to process those things.
I thought for a minute that my youngest was going to go on to really practice law. And then she called me one morning and said, and she knew it. She had been talking to the mayor, I think, but she never said to me, what's your position? And she said, just pray. I'm praying about something. And then she calls me one morning and says, at 9 o'clock, the mayor's gonna make a press announcement.
I am adding a new cabinet-level position, Director of Community Safety. And today, I'm proud to announce that LaKenya Middlebrook will be taking on this first ever role for the City of Knoxville. She truly has a passion for finding solutions and helping others.
I think we still have that line of dialogue. Sometimes she's working on something and I'll kind of pry and say what's going on, and she'll let me know that's territory you can't tread into right now. I understand and appreciate that. I think we're still about some of the same stuff, yeah. Perhaps at a different level, because now she is actually doing it. I'm just trying to talk about what we can be and how we can come together. And she's out there doing it every day now, working with young people, working with groups, and developing policy.
And I find myself sometimes, it's kind of funny, like whenever I'm watching TV or I'm, somewhere where the photos are, like there's a little subconscious piece of me that's kind of looking for him almost, like I wonder if he's in there. It helps to humanize the movement. I think sometimes we think about a lot of this work, and it really was exceptional work. It was everyday people who made a decision to try to change the community around them. And so I think that piece of it I really appreciate, is that because it was something that it wasn't ever presented to us as, these larger than life figures over there doing this great thing, like superheroes that, changed our community. They were superheroes, but we saw them as Bruce Wayne, not as Batman.
46 years, I've seen the change. This city, I've seen it before World's Fair. I've seen it during World's Fair, and I've seen it since, and there is a steady move toward progress and toward becoming a real metropolitan area. I do hope that our boys and our girls will be given the motivation to aspire to greatness, and greatness does not mean having your name in the headlines. It means your ability to serve, to share, and to move beyond your own personal goals and ambitions, but to make life better for the total community. What we were 200 years ago, we will not be in the future. And so we've got to get our minds together and determine that we're not going to be just a little scruffy city, but we're going to be a real metropolitan area.